kind of. It's just like this is a joke from Jim. So if it's a little off, might get us canceled. Let's delete it as a fair warning. If you think
Okay.
I'm gonna tell you, and then you can tell me if you can delete it or not.
All right, no problem.
Okay. Isn't it crazy how 10 years ago we were all afraid of trans fats, but now we're celebrating fat trans?
I shouldn't
Welcome
laugh.
to Racing Home Podcast. You're joined by myself, as Bomber, and Nick Agater, your two hosts for the weekend or for today. How's it going, Nick? Where are you driving to right now? Looks like you're in a car.
Yeah, so right now, Carol and I are in the car. We are about 2 hours from Austin. We've been driving for about 18 hours from Minnesota. So overall, it's going to be 20 hours in the car once we get back home to
20
Austin.
hours.
Yep, 20 hours. Yep, so the reason why we are driving down from Minnesota is because prior to that, we were over in Michigan. So I took advantage of this relatively close proximity. We were in Michigan for freaking Gridlife Revup at Gingerman Raceway.
That's right. So we were at Gridlife Revup event, the first Gingerman event. We will get into a little bit of that here shortly. Nick drove up from Texas, Austin, Texas, to Gridlife Revup, and
In
then
Michigan.
left
Yeah.
in Michigan, left early on Sunday, and we'll
Yep.
get into that a little bit more, and went to Minnesota. How long of a drive was that?
So
Well,
going
give us,
from
give us a breakdown. Hold on. In 1 week, you drove from Austin to South Haven, Michigan. How long of a drive was that?
So from Austin to South Haven, Michigan was 18 hours of driving.
18
And,
hours.
yep, 18 hours. And then from South Haven, Michigan over to our place in northern Minnesota, that was another 12 hours, so total 30 hours there. And now this drive from northern Minnesota all the way down to Austin is 20 hours. So in total, for just highway driving around the country, is coming up to 50 hours of driving in just 5 days.
You've done
50 hours.
50 hours in less than a week. That is insane. The most I ever did was 36 hours, and I was like, I hate my life. And you're doing 50 hours, and half of that was towing.
Yeah, it's a lot of driving, but it helps a lot when you have an amazing wife
Mhm,
who is willing to go out and go with you to these
mhm,
crazy events, and she's an awesome co-pilot and co-driver. So granted, going
mhm.
from Austin to South Haven, Michigan, towing the Focus, that was all on me, and then towing the empty trailer from South Haven, Michigan over to Minnesota, she helped out for about 2 to 3 hours, but the majority was me. But it is what I am willing to do because I want to get out to these events. I don't want to be sitting at home in Austin.
That's dedication right there, man. And I'm really happy about that. Really happy you could join.
Yep. Where are
Um,
you from? Where are you at right now? Because you're not at home either.
I am not at
Where?
home. I am in a hotel in Charlotte, North Carolina. So right after Rev Up, I left and flew out to Charlotte, North Carolina today, and for
Why?
work.
Oh.
We have our TRD and the GR garage here. This is where they build all
Oh,
their, I
really?
think, NASCARs, and they build the GR Cup cars, the GR86 Cup cars. So I am
Really?
here to work on some stuff with the GR Cup team.
Dude, that is awesome. So if all of a sudden you have a bunch of GR Cup car parts on your car, we're all going to know where those parts came
Yeah.
from, straight from Toyota themselves.
Hey, listen, I was talking to Peter and Kyle about this, and Peter was like, "You're cheating," and I was like, Kyle was like, "It's OEM parts." I was like, "Does that mean I can use the sequential? Like, and I can just sneak out the sequential from them and just put it in my car in 1 week and then go for it? Like, is that legal? Because it's OEM technically."
Oh man, Adam and Abe would have a field day trying to figure out the class legality of that.
Oh man, I mean, it's an OEM part. It's in an OEM car. Okay, like it's a state of sequential trends, but yes, it is in an OEM car.
Wait, is the differential that is in the GR Cup car the same or
Uh,
better than your
the
car?
diff is actually worse in those cars. The diff is the diff is it's a stock diff. It's a
Oh, because
stock
you have an upgrade.
4 point, yeah, there's a stock 4.1 with a torsion and LSD, and I have a 4.3 with a Oskikin LSD. And that was one of
Uh,
my feedback that they asked me about what I was doing with my car, and then I was like, yeah, it makes a pretty big difference. So I don't know. They might be considering an upgrade for those cars. I don't know. But only here for tomorrow. I have a meeting with them tomorrow and getting a little tour, and then going to some of the suppliers, and then yeah.
All right, well, we can continue on to our next topic before you accidentally spill too much information about how to make a
True.
GR86 faster for
True, true,
everybody
true.
else.
All right, so Revup happened. Nick, tell us about Revup. It was your first time at Gingerman after we came for our 2021 Midwest Festival, where we snuck you in kind of for an HPDE ticket. You drove your car that weekend, the same state as you drove it from Texas to Michigan. And what were your lap times then? What was your expectation for this event? How did you do? How did it go? Spill the beans, man.
Well, anyone who knows me knows that I'm not a fan of beans, but in any case, back in 2021, you, I, Raza, Kenny, and Carol, we all went out to support you really over at Gridlife, not Revup, at Midwest Fest. And so that was my first time out of Gingerman, and the Focus RS on RS4 tires, and it was stock suspension, but it had an E30 tune. So Adam gave me a hookup. He got me into HPDE for the second day, and I was able to go out there and land a 1 minute 47 point something as my PB lap in HPDE Advance. So nothing crazy or anything, but that was at least the benchmark that I wanted to beat. And for comparison, over at Laguna, for my very first time at HPD, I did a 147 as well.
Sorry to interrupt. Hold on. You know what the funny thing is? My first time at the Gingerman, I also did a 148 in my FRS.
That's amazing. That's crazy just to see how comparable our times have been
like
throughout history.
The same. That's insane. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
It would have been really cool to see you go out to Laguna before you had your car in the current form, back when it was relatively stock, and see what kind of a time you could have done. Anyways, back over to my weekend over at Revup. So Saturday morning started off phenomenally. First session out in the morning, I did a 142.2, which was automatically 5 seconds faster than what I had done back in the HPD days. So I was already off to a great start and feeling really good. However, Eddie and others were already well ahead of me. So I knew there was time to go and try to chase after. And on top of that, seeing that times were comparable between Gingerman and Laguna, and the fact that I had done a sub 40 in Laguna, I had in my head that I wanted to go and attack a sub 40 over at Gingerman. So that was my goal, to try to shave 2 seconds off my lap time. But what I quickly found out about Gingerman is that the track is very temperature dependent. So for the second session, I went out and I did another 42. It was like a 42.8. And then for the third session, temperatures were even warmer, and I did a 142.9. So it was actually getting worse from the first session. I was getting slower as the track conditions got warmer. However, for the fourth session of the day, it was like 5:30 p.m. Air temperatures were cooler, so the engine was running a little bit better. It wasn't overheating the oil or coolant or pulling back on timing and boost. So I was able to pull together a 141.769. However, that was slightly behind what Jamie was able to do. He was driving the blue Focus RS. He did damn near the same exact time as me. He did a 141.755. So him and I were off by just 14 thousandths of a second. So going into Sunday morning, I was literally right behind him on the grid order. And on top of that, my initial 142.2 that I had on the first session was good for 4th place. But by the end of the day, I was now sitting in like 8th. So to give me the best chance of improving my time for Sunday morning, I installed the fresher tires onto the car. And then I watched a handful of videos the night prior, just trying to like learn the track and see what kind of lines people were taking to put down some better lap times than what I had been doing. And then on top of that, prior and Saturday, with the higher temperatures, I had actually asked Brian to send over a tune that was lower on power, so running less boost and less timing. That way, ideally, the engine wouldn't overheat nearly as quickly, and I could actually like learn the track as best as I can. But then for Sunday morning, I went back to the higher state of tune to run the higher power and more boost, more timing. So all in all, felt like I had given my chance and set up for the best opportunity to go and put down the fastest lap time that I could. Again, my goal was trying to get sub 40. Went out there for session 2, and unfortunately, I did not run that sub 40. I ran a 140.6, which is fantastic. It was 2 seconds faster than my previous PB 142, so I was right there trying to knock on the door of sub 40s at Digimon. That time 40.6. I didn't realize at first, but that was good enough for third place. So I had jumped back into the pack all the way up to third place, and I was honestly ecstatic, but I didn't believe that it would stand, to be honest. Eddie was right behind me at a 140.8, so he was only 2/10 off of my time, and I honestly believe he was going to beat me. Unfortunately, because of family reasons over in Minnesota, I had to pack up the Focus, put it on the trailer. Kara and I hit the road. She was looking over Race Hero during session number 6 and number 7 to see if anybody was going to beat my third place time. And to my shock, nobody did. So my time actually stuck around. It was good enough for third place. Literally my very first podium position at a Gridlife event. And I wasn't even there to go and claim it myself, but you were able to help me out.
Yeah, man, your first ever podium, and you were not there, and so I had to take it for you. And I remember going up there, they called your name, and I was like, "Well, he's not here, but he's on FaceTime." And then I like pointed the phone at everyone to see, and everyone was like cheering you on in a way. So that was a cool experience. It was pretty funny, and people were laughing about it. And then
What I
um,
love about the whole situation,
Jason,
though, was that
yeah,
everyone was taking photos, and I was also recording on my
uh-huh,
phone. So I had so many different views of you having me on FaceTime to go and accept the award. It was honestly, it was weird, but it was also unique and kind of funny at the same time. Pretty memorable.
uh-huh. And then Jason also kind of shit talked you. Is like, it's his first ever podium. He's not here.
Yeah, I would have loved to actually be up
Yeah.
there, but like I said, I had family reasons to go and attend to, and I honestly thought that my time was not going to stick. I thought that third
It
place time was going to be beat by Eddie or someone
yeah.
else in street class, and I was going to get displaced. And so I honestly didn't feel the desire to like stick around and kind of waste 5 to 6 hours of my day just to see the time slip away, and then I'd be in a position of like, well, shoot, now I'm in fourth or maybe fifth place, and I've lost time to get to Minnesota. I have to reschedule items that I had to do on Monday morning over there at the property. So it was an unfortunate circumstance, but hey, like we got a lot of laughs out of it. Other people saw it as a unique situation, and it's definitely it's definitely memorable, and it's going to be something that I talk about for the rest of my life.
I mean, it's definitely memorable for both of us and for the podcast now. So, um, really, really proud of you for what you did, man. It's not easy to get a podium in good life. So,
Thank you. I'm
good
much
job.
appreciated. And on top of that, not only did I get a podium just at a Gridlife event, but also I got it over at Gingerman, which is
Mhm.
Gridlife's home track. Yeah, I'm at loss of words for now. Quick side note though, over Revup, I actually expected there to be a lot more people. I know it was only Time Attack, and I know it was only HPDE as well. There was no drifting, there was no GLTC, but I expected to see a larger Time Attack field. There were what 100 or so time attackers, and incredibly, Club TR was slammed. Holy shit, you had a lot of competition over there, Fez.
Yeah. So, Club TR was the largest field we've ever had.
There was what, like 27 Club TR cars there?
27 cars, and there was 2 new contenders that were actually really, really fast. Technically 3 contenders that were really, really fast. Uh, James Houghton came in
Okay.
and he was, just laid it
Hmm.
out on the table with this just schlong out like the 38.5 out of nowhere,
That's crazy.
so that wasn't gonna happen. And then Jimmy Vidoc with a GR86 and Lyle Zara also with a GR86. 2 very, very fast drivers that were there, on top of what we normally see. So the
Yeah.
competition was very stiff in Win Club TR this weekend.
Sorry to cut you
So
off, but weren't there like 5 or so Club TR
yeah.
drivers that were all putting down lap times in the 40s? Like it was pretty stiff competition.
Oh yeah,
Like,
there's a bunch of 40s and there's a bunch of 39s.
Dude, that is crazy. That is so
Yeah,
competitive. So you had your work cut out for
yeah,
you yourself to stand out
yeah.
among the
So
pack.
it was It was a tough fought battle. So I came in with an expectation of getting a 138. That was my goal for the weekend. Last year, and the reason why I'm saying that is because last year I did the 39 flat, and at turn 3, I had a massive slide, right? And if I had or did not have that slide, I probably would have been in the 38s, like 38.7 or 38.6 or something, right? Last year, and that's without the diff. And in the video, even in the last year's video, you could hear my diff opening up, like going like the entire time on corner exits. So I could not put power down, right? So I was like, I have the necessary modifications for this year to make myself be in like mid to low 38s. I thought I could do that because I had a new diff, I had all new suspension. I had done a lot of testing, and at the Eagles Canyon Raceway in Dallas, and I thought I could carry that over. Um, and first session happened, and like none of the stuff that I tested at Eagles Canyon carried over. Right, like it's the tarmac at ECR is just way more grippy than Gingerbread because it's a newer, fresher track. So it doesn't show you the flaws in the car as well as it would as it should. Um, Gingerman being very sensitive to the conditions, it shows flaws really well, especially like it wasn't as cold as it was last year, so the conditions were worse than last year. So the only real time to put the lap together for 38s would have been the first session of Saturday and Sunday, potentially Sunday as well.
Yeah, it was only
But
Saturday morning and Sunday morning that you had the best and only
yeah,
opportunities really to put down a PB lap
mhm,
time, and if you had a goal,
yeah.
go after it.
So I come in with my car on the first session, and first session, it literally on the out lap. I'm gonna call his name out. Dallas Street caused a black flag out lap. His car broke down, and he is also known to do that. So that session got black flagged, and we
Is
pulled
that the
in, and then
crazy looking RX-8 with the
yes,
like the turbo attached to the side and the front spoiler that's made from a
yep,
wing?
it's the LS
LS.
LS
Oh,
one.
okay.
So he black flagged it, and then, I'm hearing that he also like oiled down the track. I don't know what happened there. So basically that happened, and then we were let out again after that, and we had like 2 laps to do. We had like 2 laps to put it together. Um, and I couldn't do it. My car was sliding so much. I had to be so gentle on the throttle because it just like would want to slide. Turn 3, I had a lot of drifts. Turn 11, I had a dirt drop. Um, turn 8 or 9, the high speed left hander, like even high speed, my car was sliding. So it was not. It's fun, but it's not fast, right? It was very frustrating. And then also trying out these new pads, the Hockey Air One pads. They're the polar opposite of what I'm used to. I used to run on CSG C2 C21s, and I decided to switch it up for the season to try Hockey Air Ones. Just wanted to test it out to see if I like it, and then also they're just cheaper for like half the price. Um,
Hey, real quick question
so
on those
yes.
Hawk ER1 brake pads. Was this your first time running
Mhm.
those with those brake pads, or did you run with them back at Eagles Canyon Raceway?
I was running them during my testing at Eagles Canyon, but I was running through a lot of issues with the car and those testing as well to kind of setup based. That I didn't focus on brakes as much. I focused on suspension, trying to set the suspension up and the tuning up of the car. So I wasn't like pushing my braking zones as much and that time. So so the ER ones, the CSGs have a lot of really high initial bite, and I was used to that. The Hawks, you need a lot of brake pressure to get the car to stop. With CSG 20, with C21s, you don't. So that was like another learning curve for me that I built throughout the weekend essentially. Um, Along with that and my like setup issue that I had with the car just sliding all over the place, I just couldn't put it together, and that I was already nervous coming into the event because I was like, I had high expectations for myself, and not only myself, I had like other people had high expectations for me too. That's what I felt like because I was like a good contender last year. I let that pressure get to me, And then the first session went through, and then I did not meet expectations, and I like lost my confidence even more, which I had to like reset myself. And but throughout the weekend, I got faster, but the conditions got worse, so it was a wash.
Yeah, I completely feel the exact same way. I felt like I was improving on my driving. I was taking better lines throughout Saturday. However, the times were getting slower, and that's really all due to the fact that the temperature and the track was just getting so much hotter and so much worse. On the Focus, I was boiling the oil and the coolant, and it was pulling boost, it was pulling timing, so I was going significantly slower on the back straight. At some points, barely even accelerating at all.
Yeah, like I was 3 miles an hour slower in the back straight from the first session to like the last session of the day.
Oh, wow, yeah, that is a huge drop-off throughout the day. Hey, how did your PB top speeds compare to one another this time versus the last time?
PB lap actually slower, 3 miles an hour slower, because like it was hotter. I think I did a 115, 116.
Mm-hmm.
Last year I did a 118, 119.
Okay.
Yeah, and I also noticed when comparing data with Dana, I lost 8 tenths from 10 to 11.
Wow, so that is counting from the beginning of turn 10 all the way through the exit of turn 11. That is pretty significant.
So a lot of things, and then also we made some setup changes. I reduced some rebound in the rear to help with it. I disconnected the sway bar. We added more toe in together.
The toe plate alignment that we did to add some more toe into the rear of your car, did that help you at all?
The toe in helped a lot. That was the first thing we did, to toe in, and then taking some rebound out of the rear, right? And then took the sway bar, disconnect the sway bar. And then what really helped was, thanks to Graham from Boosted Performance Tuning, he sent me a map later that night to adjust for throttle mapping, because my throttle, it felt like it was 10% and then 50%. There was like no in between, so it was like really bouncing, which was upset the car in the corner as well. So he said he smoothed out the throttle quite a bit for second day, which helped significantly. Um, and that helped quite a bit. Everything combined helped quite a bit, but I think now what I'm dealing with is oversteer under braking, so the weight kind of lifting off of the rear, which is, I had the same issue last year, and that was due to my rake last year. And I'm going to do the same thing this year. I'm going to reduce my rake and see if it helps.
And when you're talking about your rake, you're talking about the rake of your suspension. So the rear of your car is higher than the front of the car, correct? Okay.
And the reason why a lot of people commented on my rake, actually, when I first revealed delivery, they were like, "Dang, it's all the rake, isn't it?" And I was like, "Yeah, I tested it. That's the thing. I tested the car like this. I tested the car, and it felt good, because I was fighting turn-in understeer at my first event with this setup, right? I talked to Chris at Inertia Labs, and the recommendation was to lower the car in the front by like maybe a quarter inch to a third of an inch, right? Quarter to half an inch. And I lowered it, and it felt great. The front end feels great. Like even Dana drove my car, and he's like, my turn-in on my car feels better than his K24.
Yeah, Dana had told me the same thing you just said.
Right? But the rear now is set. So it's like backwards, right? Like nothing from ECR transferred over to Gingerman, which I'm like, fuck, like what do I do? It's so track dependent. And yeah. So I'm just fighting. Like once the setup is good on this car is fast as F. Like, because we're starting from ground zero, right? Like with the race comp engineering coilovers that I had those figured out by Laguna. Like the car was driving great. And I kind of, like, if I had stayed with those coilovers and that setup, I might have been faster this weekend. But the thing is, the ceiling is so much higher with these coilovers that it's maybe worth it. It's a first event. It's okay. Like we got Midwest Festival, Road America, Mid Ohio, Audubon, all that to kind of catch up to it. So I think I'll be fine.
Yeah, and you have the opportunity at future events to go and get in positions that get you those season points. Because the season points only take the 4 of your best events. So you could do 6 events. Only the top 4 events truly matter. So as long as you do better than here at Revup, then you'll be just fine. But I know what you mean about like the testing. So for me in my car, I was running the gyro disc brake rotors for the first time, as well as the Glock R18 brake pads on the front. And then on the rear of the car, I had Glock R12s. Normally I run R16 square, but I wanted to run R18s up front to help with temperature management on the brakes. And then the R12s in the rear, honestly, it wasn't by choice. It was just by having the fact that, like, shit, I didn't order new rear brake pads. These are still relatively new. Let me throw them on the car and send it and see what happens. Not the best, not my best recommendation for going out there. And so with that setup, I was very concerned about the car being too front bias on braking force, and in addition, how it was gonna behave with the weight in the car kind of shifting towards the rear, because I now have the roll bar in the rear and lighter front seats. So it was not something I could truly test at my shakedown back at MSR Crescent, but this is what I had, and I had to go figure it out. So during the Saturday events, Saturday sessions, when it was really too hot to actually go and put down a PB lap time, I was utilizing those sessions to go and practice my braking, and I would accelerate hard into the up to the corners, brake as hard as I could to try to feel out the car, toss it into the corner, see how it would behave, and see if I could figure out any kind of like upsetting behavior for the car. But it felt fine. It was actually, honestly, felt very similar to what I had last year. So I was very happy about that. In addition to that, my braking fade never occurred. So last year I always had a little bit of brake fade here and there, or the pedal would get mushy by the end of a session. However, over at Gingerman, even in the heat of the day, even on those PB laps, my brakes never gave up on me. I always felt very, very confident in my brakes and the brake pedal feel. So, in addition to that, I have a Castrol SRF Racing Gold, the gold bottle juice that everyone loves to put into their race cars. I finally went and splurged on that. It's like $50 a bottle, but that was also something I did for the car because I wanted to make sure braking was no longer a concern or an issue for my car, that I could actually trust it and go all out, and it was phenomenal. I had no issue with the brakes, so highly recommend Gyro Disc, highly recommend Glock. Personally, I know it's not everybody's cup of tea for a brake pad, but it works for me, as well as the Castrol SRF Racing brake fluid.
But it's like, going to that point, it shows you how like critical, how much we try to overthink our setups before an event. The goal for events should be to be precise and consistent. Right. That's the goal. But sometimes, as humans, we get in our heads, and it is what it is.
Yeah, I agree. But I think the other thing too to this is minimizing change points. And what I mean by that is, at least in like my line of work, we want to go and minimize what we're changing on the system. We want to make sure that it is continuing to operate. And so we don't want to introduce risk, because any kind of downtime that's the cause of a change, very, very costly. So we do everything we can to go and minimize that. And I kind of correlate that over to the car in the sense that, well, and actually in this off season, I was very concerned because I did a lot of changes. I changed the clutch, I changed the fuel injectors, I changed the high pressure fuel pump, intercooler change, hard pipes change, brake rotors. And that's not even to count like all the little bolts that had to come off of the car or get pulled to go and actually do the clutch job and then put it all back together. This was going to be the first time in a competitive format after doing all of that. I was like, fuck, man, I really hope I torqued down every single bolt to spec. I marked as many bolts as I could, but you never know if I had actually missed one. But when it actually came down to getting onto track, I also took that kind of philosophy of minimizing change points. And so once I put down lap times that were actually decent, I was just practicing little by little, pushing a little brake zone a little bit here, try and power on a little over there on that corner, all together to really try to keep the car on the track. And actually on my PB lap, I think I only put 2 off on turn 3, but for the rest of the lap, kept it clean, no 4 offs, and did not get disqualified, so I was good to go there.
Yeah, I went 4 off, unfortunately, the second session of the on Sunday.
Oh, dude. What corner did you off on?
Turn 1.
Oh, lols.
Yeah, turn one, so everyone saw it. I like entered really hot, and as I turned, I just felt the entire car just sliding towards the exit, and I was like, if I try to save this, I'm gonna spin around into pit lane, so I'm just gonna go off straight. And luckily, like no damage. Just mowed some grass, and we're good.
And the splitter stayed on.
Yeah.
There was no problem. It did not fall off.
Splitter stayed on. Those splitter rods are doing magic. Yeah.
Yeah, turn one is tricky. I honestly haven't really felt like I optimized turn one yet. I need to go back and actually review the GoPro footage of my
Mhm.
PB lap time and see how I took it and see if there's really a better or more optimal way to take it. Yeah, because Midwest Fest, it is only at this point 16 days away as of this recording, and I really don't want to like mess up in front of a bigger crowd.
Mhm.
On top of that, I
Mhm.
really just want to like do better and even in condition worse, try to put a faster lap
Yeah.
time.
Send me your data. We can compare data together for both of our cars. Other thing that happened for me, my trunk is shearing off. Like it's ripping.
Oh yeah, you sent a photo of that trunk of yours shearing off because of the wing. For the audio listeners, can you like try to
Okay.
explain what is going on?
So basically, the point where the little edge of the trunk where it is the closest to the plastic spoiler type of thing that came made on the GR86, it's ripping off from there where near the wing mount is. Um, because of a lot of like the oscillation from the wing pushing the trunk down, up and down, up and down, up and down, it's like weakened that edge. So it's this is a new trunk, by the way. This is not the same as last year, right? I thought I mounted the correct way. So what I was told, like previously, when I mounted the trunk or the mounted the wing, I just drilled a straight hole and then like bolted it to the trunk, right? It's simple as possible. But there's three layers in the trunk. There's a bottom layer which is underneath the trunk. There's a middle layer that you don't see, and there's a top layer at the top, right? Um, but when you clamp them together, it would cause a ripple in the trunk surface at the top. So when I got this trunk, I drilled a bigger hole, like the size of the big fender washer, essentially, to put it so it's directly on the top layer only. But because there's only the top layer, it weakened the trunk quite a bit, causing the trunk to flex with the downforce, which then cracked the trunk.
Oh, okay. Okay, that makes sense. I gotcha.
So I saw Jimmy Vidoc's trunk, right? He had the same wing as I do. He did it how I did it previously. He just kind of clamped
So you're gonna
the
try
trunk
like
together
putting the metal layers back
in a
together?
way, yeah. And then he added this like one strong rubber, for where the trunk uh, meets with the body of the car, so the hinges don't have a lot of stress on it. And yeah, so that helped. So I'm gonna try that next. I need a new trunk, so I'm gonna to buy a freaking new trunk. So it's an expensive fix, unfortunately, and
And it won't have your
it's I
wrap.
won't I won't have the wrap on it, which I'm also kind of like annoyed about, but it is what it is. Especially for Midwest Festival. I was really hoping I'd have the wrap, but it's okay. Like the yellow wrap, I have extra yellow wraps sitting in my one of the rooms in the house. So I just want someone to cut a piece and just mail it to me. But we'll figure it out. Additionally, I also need my harnesses because I need to change harnesses. But when you don't have the sixth point, they have these ASM harnesses that like detach essentially from the top. So if you get in an accident, they have give in them and they like rip up. The rip opens. So if you like flip
Yeah.
your car, for example, it'll detach a little bit for you to like move and maneuver, and that way your head isn't stuck and your head isn't the fourth or third point of
Yeah.
connecting your roof to the car. So,
Yeah.
but with a six point harness, you are part of the structure of the car if you don't have a roll bar. So for safety reasons, you know what the crazy part was? NASA doesn't allow ASM harnesses. They want you to use a proper 6-point harness, even if it means you're using a harness bar. Gridlife wants you to use ASM harnesses. They don't want you to use 6-point without a roll bar. Yeah, I agree with Gridlife on this one, and I will go back to my previous setup from last year on this, and then basically the money I invested in the harness bar and the harnesses kind of gone to waste, unfortunately.
Well, there's a lot of stuff you got to go and do. You got to get your trunk fixed, and you got to get your harness situation figured out, all before Midwest.
Harness situation figured out. I need the trunk fixed. I need to lower the car and get the car lined. And I got a bunch of work travel. So I'm in Charlotte this week, and I'm in Phoenix next week. So wish me
Worst
luck.
case, we can get your car back onto the alignment pad with the toe plates and get it figured out doing the old-fashioned manual method. Actually, I guess I never actually told you, but for the past year or so, I've actually been doing my alignments myself on the car just because I got sick of doing $200 to $300 alignments at a shop and then doing a suspension adjustment and having to go back. So I've been doing it all myself on the current coilover setups, but it's really not that hard. All that matters is making sure that the wheel is straight. I got the toe in the front, toe in the rear correct, and that tells me that I have my thrust angle correct.
How do you camber then?
I just put a flat piece of metal against the wheel, and I have an angle finder, and I just put it on the side of that piece of metal, and it tells me the angle. So the front is at negative 3.1 degrees of camber, which that actually tracks with what I've had at the professional shop as well. So those two numbers match up.
I mean, that's what the Paco stands do too. They give you the same alignment gauge, but they have a little stand.
Oh yeah, my weight is not the ideal way, but it's very redneck. But I got so sick of spending so much money on doing alignment. I was like, I got to be able to figure this out. And so far, it's worked out for me decently well.
I spent $800 in alignments just this year. That's with my sponsorship with the company. They were like, "Yeah, we'll give you 15% discount." So it's $400 per alignment. There's just 2 alignments because my specs were so messed up after the coilover install and the SPL arm install. So I wish I did them together. So it would have just been one $400 payment. But it was ridiculous. And after that, I was like, I need to figure out another solution because $800, $400 alignment every time is just not sustainable. Yeah, guys, that was our weekend from Revup. We have a lot of work to do before. I mean, I have a lot of work to do to get to Midwest Festival. Hoping that all the issues are sorted, and we just have a good time.
Yep, and then Karen and I will be seeing you soon. We fly out the Wednesday night prior to Midwest Fest from Austin, and then we'll pick up the Focus from your place and drive it over to Gingerman. So anyone who looks at me is like, oh, he can push it because he's on the trailer. I won't be able to do that at Midwest for Mid-Ohio. I'll actually be driving the car on the street over to the events.
Here's some more podiums for Racing Home Podcast. All right, guys, have a good one.
Yep, see you later, everyone, and thank you again for listening to this re-recording of this episode. I really didn't like the sound quality of the AirPods, so I will be making sure that I have like the Rode microphones charged up next. So, see everyone later. Bye.